I'm Tiffany Kavalak. I am the Policy Director at Ohio EPA. Thank you for joining us today. We plan to bring everyone up to speed on what has happened to date and where the Central Ohio Water Study is going. This is the first of a series of webinars to provide updates through study completion and findings. And on behalf of Director Vogel, we want to thank MORPC and the MORPC membership for approving a resolution to support the state taking the lead on this study with MORPC's assistance. This webinar is being recorded for folks that are unable to participate today, and we will be having it available upon request through MORPC. You can enter questions at any time in the chat, and we plan to answer all the questions at the end. Someone just said they can't hear. Are others not able to hear me? Okay, I think we're okay. It might be your individual speaker. So I don't think it is news to anyone that Central Ohio is experiencing an economic boom. I've seen announcements over the years that we were the 13th fastest growing city, and then we were the fastest in the Midwest. But this latest Forbes article from April 14th suggests that we are now the fastest growing city in the country. This map developed by MORPC is detailing where the population may drive from to any of these three new manufacturing locations, Intel, Hyperion, and Honda LG plant, and are all large water users. It ultimately highlights where population growth may occur for those that will be employed by these facilities. In addition, we have one of the fastest growing locations for data centers. Amazon Web Services alone has announced an additional $7.8 billion in Ohio over the next 6 years, on top of their already $6.3 billion investment. Already, we have over 1,100 in Ohio, with many here in the central region. A lot of these use water for cooling purposes, and we will need to factor in these existing and future large water users into our study. The scope of this proposal that we sent out is to really look at the current availability of water, and that relates to our streams, our groundwater, and our reservoirs. And then evaluate what the current demand is. Demand from consumption, demand for irrigation, demand for processed water. And then what's the projected future demand for 2030, 2040, and 2050? And we've asked the consultants to give us a gap analysis where we may find critical areas. We've also asked for regionalization recommendations, opportunities for water reuse, and helping us cite the next new mega water users. This really is a water quantity study with an eye to ensure water quality is maintained with the future economic growth decisions. And speaking specifically about water reuse, this relates to treating wastewater effluent to a higher standard than stream water quality standards. Many of our large corporations want recycled water, and it can become another source of water for use for cooling the data centers and manufacturing processes, and saving our drinking water plants potable water for consumption. So ultimately, we're looking to identify zones of economic opportunity based on water resources, feasibility, and availability. For areas that appear to be water critical, we want to provide a pathway to readiness, so you're not left behind with this economic boom. We obviously want to maintain water quality in our rivers and streams. And we want to identify groundwater recharge areas if we're overusing our supply. We're also having ODNR look at the reservoir reevaluation contracts. And I'm going to turn it over to Brad Lodge at Ohio Department of Natural Resources to give an overview of everything that ODNR is looking for with this study. Brad?
Thank you, Tiffany, and hello, everybody. My name is Brad Lodge. I am the Water Inventory and Planning Program Manager here at ODNR Division of Water Resources. We are responsible for regulating and tracking all high-capacity water withdrawals in Ohio. Currently, there are about 3,600 water withdrawal facilities that we collect annual data from. The map to the right of this slide will give you an idea of where those facilities are located and what the water is being used for. ODNR is thrilled to be a part of this study. The last time a comprehensive water availability study was conducted like this was in the 1970s, so we are well overdue for another one. When we were approached to participate, we were asked what we would like to gain from this study to aid the protection of Ohio's water. So first and foremost, to understand the available water resources in this region, a water budget would need to be established. Think of a water budget like your personal checkbook, for those of you that still use checks. It's used to track what water is coming in, what water is moving out, and how that balance changes over time with use. The water budget will be extremely valuable for our high-capacity permitting program. When evaluating applications for water withdrawal permits, the chief of the division must make decisions off of available data. The study will compile all the data to a centralized location and help us evaluate potential impacts that any withdrawal will have. Finally, right at the heart of this study, we have this complex system of water supply and flood control reservoirs. Some are owned by the Army Corps, some are locally owned. ODNR owns a portion of water in a few of them, and all of them interact in some way, shape, or form. So we've asked the consultant to perform a site-specific water budget analysis of the reservoirs to better understand the complexities of the system as a whole. Again, we are very, very excited to be a part of this study. So thanks to all the folks on the call that had a hand in getting this off the ground. We're on a great path forward, and that's it for me. Thanks, Tiffany.
Thanks, Brad. So Ohio Water Development Authority did pay for this study. You may know them as OWDA. So we worked with them to post the request for proposals back in December. We had some pre-bid meetings with potential consultants, and the proposals were due on January 26th. We scored those proposals in February, and OWDA signed a contract with Hazen on March 8th, 2024. So here are the criteria that we used to score these proposals. We really wanted to look at the project team and the credentials that came to the table, their understanding and approach to all of the things we were asking for, their overall experience in the water planning world, how they were going to manage all of the data we are asking them to consider, the schedule that they could commit to meeting our December 2024 deadline to have the study completed, and obviously local knowledge. There's a lot of ins and outs with Central Ohio that we wanted to make sure we had an experienced team. We did not specifically ask or add costs to our scoring evaluation, but we rather decided to use costs for this particular study as a tiebreaker if necessary. We were asking for this size of a study to be accomplished by the end of the year, and ultimately I think everyone agrees that the end result is priceless. So we were willing to pay for the best proposal with the best schedule. So we had 4 tremendous proposals. The first being Bar Engineering, who is headquartered in Minnesota, and they just did not have the local expertise we were looking for, or gave us comfort that they could meet the schedule by the end of the year with their small team. The second proposal was from Stantec. Their bid was at about $4.5 million, and they had partnered with Black & Veatch and American Structure Point and Intera with a really great proposal. The third proposal was from CDM Smith, and their costs were about $2.3 million, and they partnered with Arcadis, Reptelis, and MBI. Again, another great proposal. But ultimately, the winning proposal came from Hazen and Sawyer, who partnered with Jacobs and many other firms at a total cost bid package of $3 million, about $3 million. We had asked all of the proposals to have a $200,000 line item for contingencies, and we ended up not including that $200,000 in the final contract. So the final contract that was awarded was closer to $2.8 million. And again, Ohio Water Development Authority is in contract with Hazen directly. If you're not familiar with the other consultants that were part of Hazen and Sawyer's bid package, this will give you just a bit of overview, and we will get these slides out to folks on the call. But this will give you an overview of all the different expertise that they brought to the table. So the other thing that Hazen had proposed is that a lot of the outputs will be very visual and in dashboards. This is just an example of what our dashboards might look like. It's going to lay out what the current state of affairs are, and then where in the region are we going to be water challenged or water rich to make decisions going forward. This is just one of many examples that we expect to have visually produced from Hazen's team. The other interesting part of their proposal was that these models can be toggled to change information. So if we end up growing faster or slower than we project, we can go in and change those household growth rates. If we end up having 6 straight years of drought conditions, we can go in and change the models at a toggle with these dashboards, which is really remarkable. And all report outs are expected to be at a regional scale, but also county specific. So when we sat down with the consulting teams at the beginning of this month, they laid out their plan in a little more detail. They will be evaluating natural factors related to water, like seasonality, topography, and how natural factors interact with our source water quantity and quality. What utilities already exist, and what are their current production rates? What are the land use and development restrictions at a parcel level, if known, and so on. Ultimately, we expect to receive an integrated water resource model that identifies gaps in the overall system's ability to meet regional objectives under various future conditions. And that goes back to Brad's concept of a water budget. These analyses will include protection of our water quality and examine what new discharge loading to our streams may stress the ecosystems. This study will help provide a foundation for decision-making, both at a regional scale and at a county scale. The deliverables will be easy-to-use models for scenario planning and will highlight various path forwards with pros and cons that come with each option. Those might be costs, those might be constraints to implementation like time or land use restrictions. And I understand everyone is very anxious to be engaged and to ultimately get the findings as soon as possible, but we need to let the consultants spend time collecting the necessary information in order to give us the best product. So right now, the consulting teams are gathering data and will continue to be in this data gathering stage through May and then begin building their modeling layers in early summer. There is a ton of data we have asked them to include in their models. For Ohio EPA alone, this includes all of our wastewater permits to install, our NPDES discharge permits, all of our 208 sewer mapping, all drinking water permits to install and operate, all TMDL reports, all MS4 stormwater protections, funding nominations and awards, and so on. And ODNR has a host of existing water withdrawal permits and applications, groundwater and reservoir data. We've got data from USGS, NOAA, and OSU on climate data, and literally pages of lists of data that is being incorporated into data layers, but they don't exist yet. Some data layers do exist, and here's a few examples that will be brought into the models. This is the NRCS soil surveys. We have Ohio water well databases, the Ohio Groundwater Observation Well Network, groundwater vulnerability maps, drinking water source protection areas, ambient groundwater monitoring data, voluntary action program properties, 401 water quality certification stream eligibility map, which could factor into permitting needs and maybe add more time into project creation. NPDES stormwater permits and MS4 regulated areas. We have extra protections currently in the Darby and the Olentangy watersheds. Do those protections need to be expanded into other parts of the region in order to protect our streams? Water quality and hydrologic units in Ohio. This helps identify full, partial, and non-attainment of our streams. And the databases for How's My Waterway, which has all of our integrated report data located up into a very close scale for decision making. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, National Wetland Inventory, and so on. So this is not an exhaustive list, but it gives you an idea of how comprehensive this water study will be in factoring in so many data sets in order to make the best decisions. They're going to be layering all of these things on top of existing water and wastewater plants, big mega user data centers and manufacturing. So it's going to be very comprehensive. I'm going to now turn it over to Dave Dixon from MORPC, who's going to discuss MORPC's role with the sub-county population projections and how those maps will be used into these model scenarios. Dave?
Thank you, Tiffany. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dave Dixon. I am the Director of Data Analytics and Strategy here at MORPC. And as Tiffany mentioned previously, the study will be looking to the future on how to best accommodate growth. We're looking at 2030, 2040, and 2050. So one thing that we are providing is the ability to do that based on recent trends and local plans. So if you're familiar with MORPC's projections, we look at the recent past in terms of population, household, and job trends, and we have a massive data collection effort to collect local plans from regional stakeholders in all 15 counties. The result is our ability to project where we expect population increases, household increases, and jobs to increase. So here on the first slide, you see a map for the county level. And Tiffany, if you go to the next slide, please.
Did that work? That did not work. There you go.
We also have this at a more granular level of detail. So when we get to looking at siting and looking at the model, it needs to be at a level that you can look at specific places and compare it to all of the layers that Tiffany just previewed in terms of the water considerations and in terms of sites that folks have in mind. Next slide, please. And underlying all of this, again, is the local plans. What you see here is what we've been able to capture to date, our best available snapshot of current land use by type, and this is at the parcel level. And one more, please. And here we are extending this into the future. So this is where the local plans come in. So we can plan for not just what's on the ground today, but what we expect to have in the future. At the end of this presentation, you'll see a contact email, dataandmaps@morpc.org, where you can let us know if you have updates to plans that you want to make sure we're aware of as we help conduct this study. So what you see here is the same work that we've done, the same process we've followed for our Metropolitan Transportation Plan. We're just leveraging those projections for this project as well because it's a good fit. Again, timeline-wise, if you have something that you suspect was not included in the last MTP, you can email dataandmaps@morpc.org, and we'll see what we can do to make sure that information gets incorporated. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thanks, Dave. So along with these population projection maps, we're also working with the Farm Bureau to ensure the American Farmland Trust map layers are also incorporated into future scenarios. And as Dave said, if you have planning or zoning changes that MORPC does not yet have on these maps, please get those to Dave at that email address on the screen. And hopefully you can see why this is so important to have the most current information, because it's going to drive decisions today and into the near future. We have not asked the consultant to meet with individual communities about your water and wastewater future plans. We have your permits or your permit applications or your funding requests, and that's what we're going to go by. So if there's something major that Ohio EPA is not aware that's happening, please contact me directly and we will sit down with you and find out what your plans are so we can factor those in. But everything else should be in existing or soon to be updated 208 plans and upcoming permits that you have. We want this study to look at water security for the region, regardless of political boundaries. A regional review does not mean that the city of Columbus is going to come into your area and take over, but we all do need to work together. This means that there will be multiple scenarios for you to consider locally for your own water security, and some options will shake out more cost-effective or more implementable than others. Partnering with another local government may shake out as the most practical solution for your local water security. We hope to provide you the best information to make informed decisions based on science and identify where economic investments and utility upgrades will be most successful. Because of the growth that is still yet to come, we do not have the consultants meeting Because of the growth that's still yet to come, we actually do have the consultants sitting down and meeting directly with folks like Jobs Ohio and the New Albany and Company to gain insight on likely investments coming to the region that are not yet public, but will need to account for in the water user models. If there are other large development agencies that may have private information that I should have Hazen talk to, please contact me. And if you did not get this appointment directly from Edwina at MORPC, and this was forwarded to you by someone else, please use this email for Edwina at the address under the listserv participation to get yourself directly on the invitee list for the upcoming webinars. These webinars are the only way to keep up to date when there are items ready to share with the stakeholders. And as you can see, we anticipate the next one to be in midsummer, since the consultants are doing data collection right now, and have asked the consultants to give us any early findings specifically for Licking County in early fall. And then a full report out to all the stakeholders is expected to occur in early January. We've asked that all the work be done by the end of December and then a report out of the findings and recommendations in January. And again, I am Tiffany Kavalek, and anyone can feel free to email me directly if questions come up after today. We will have a session for Q&A, but I have a couple more slides to go through. I've got one item related to Southwest Ohio. You guys may see or read articles about us kicking off a water study in the Southwest region that's expected to start and be bid out sometime late spring. So I just wanted to make people aware of that. It would be a whole new RFP specifically for these 17 counties. And back on the water reuse concept, Ohio did create a water reuse chapter through the waterreuse.org association. We are the first Midwest state in the country to have a water reuse chapter, and we hope to start forming committees and providing guidance for purple pipe distribution around the state, specifically in Central Ohio. So I will go into more details about that program on our next webinar. But if you have any questions in the meantime or have heard about it and want a one-on-one conversation with me, don't hesitate to reach out. Okay, and then we'll turn it over for questions, and I'll stop sharing my screen. And I've been trying to keep up with the chat, so give me just a minute. Okay. Yes, it will. This presentation will be available. It's also being recorded if you want a recording. Agriculture. How would the study evaluate impacts on flooding with the proposed population growth? And how will this possibly influence the water availability? So we've asked that Hazen and Sawyer work directly with the Soil and Water Conservation Districts through Greg Nadgett at Ohio Department of Agriculture. And I saw just this morning that they've reached out to Greg to start those conversations. So I think to me, that's a conversation with the coordinated soil and water conservation districts and what they wanted, what kind of information they want from this study. Anybody else? I know this is a lot of information and you probably need to go back and look through the slides or watch the recording once this is done. But we're super excited. Is the study expected to impact H2 Ohio by driving project spending based on the study outcomes? So H2 Ohio, from Ohio EPA's perspective, our infrastructure money is geared towards disadvantaged communities, but we do have this whole new water reuse world that we want to incentivize, and that's also through the purple pipe. But we also, at some point, will want to incentivize on-site water reuse at our manufacturing facilities. I know that Honda is already doing water reuse on one of their paint lines. I think Intel is expected to build some water reuse into their system. So I think we need to have conversations around funding, tax exemptions with water reuse, and that will be one of our committees for the water reuse chapter. Let's see. Licking County by the fall, can you provide clarity? Yes. So when we bid out the project, we said we wanted the entire regional study done by the end of December. We would like any initial findings that they could pull out from their work in Licking County specifically within 6 months. And so the contract was signed on March 8th. So sometime April, May, June, July, August, September, we are asking for the Hazen and Sawyer to give us initial findings specifically for Licking County and the kind of this water budget and where we are today and where things are projected to go and what we need to do. We're hoping that they can give us most of Licking County's findings in September, but some pieces of that may have to wait from a more global look. Will there be recommendations on green infrastructure and infiltration practices? So generally speaking, we've asked the consultant to figure out the best places to upgrade utilities to meet the population projections. How that is done or what practices need to be done to allow for those upgrades may depend on the water quality in that area, and infiltration and green infrastructure would likely then be the solution. I honestly don't know, Jennifer, the level of detail that they're going to be looking at on a facility by facility basis. Is the study expected to impact policy at the state level? So Ohio EPA particularly is going to be using this information for permitting decisions. We are frequently being asked to evaluate if a large water user can go in certain areas of the state, and especially here in Central Ohio. And this information is going to help us decide whether or not those permitting actions will be sustainable into the future. And I think from a policy perspective, it's going to help inform us where to invest our limited dollars. Folks can go anywhere they want for bonds and get money, but I think Ohio EPA, is hoping to invest in sustainable solutions so that we have water security in the future. And again, I think a lot of our investments are going to be in the water reuse space because we have so much manufacturing here and coming. Anything else? And if you don't want to ask a question now, or you think of something after this, feel free to email me directly. I think most of you know how to get a hold of me. And it's on the last slide, and we'll post these on MORPC's website.